In the meantime, top congressional negotiators are still trying to come to a consensus on what should be in the next major coronavirus relief bill. Democrats and Republicans remain apart on issues like aid to states and local governments and federal unemployment benefits. But yesterday, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said President Trump would soon take executive action to extend those benefits on his own and an eviction moratorium if Congress can't come to an agreement by tomorrow. Joining us right now is Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. His most recent piece for the Wall Street Journal is titled "No More Blank Checks from Congress for Coronavirus Relief." Senator, thank you for being here. It's good to see you. And I think you've made it pretty clear that you think this spending has gotten a bit excessive. You'd like to see a lot more, and you would like this money to be targeted. Is that a fair assessment of your position?
Well, good morning. Well, let me just lay out the macro numbers here. By the end of April, we'd already authorized at least $2.9 trillion. I had an oversight hearing last week, and there's disagreement. It might be as much as $3.6 trillion, which is, represents about 13.5 to almost 17% of last year's GDP. Now, employment's down about 10.5%. Recent economic forecasts show that we'll probably have a GDP shrinkage this year, somewhere between 4.6 and 7%. And again, so we've already authorized 13.5 to 17%, and we haven't spent or obligated about 1.2 trillion of that. So I think my main point is we really ought to take a look at what we've already spent, what's left over, what worked, what didn't work. Let's make some modifications, but let's focus on targeting financial relief to the people and businesses that truly need it. I really enjoyed listening to your segment last hour with was John and Kevin. I thought there was a really good discussion, really covered the issues in terms of what we need to be considering.
Although, Senator Johnson, I have to tell you, you are in the minority at this point. It's not a view that is popular with Mitch McConnell, your leadership at this point, and it's certainly not a view that the administration is going along with. You could be in a position where this moves on with or without you. Are you prepared to deal with that? And what do you think? I saw a political story yesterday where you said, I have no idea what they're thinking, just in terms of your own leadership.
Well, again, I'm just trying to lay out the facts. I mean, the fact of the matter is savings rates are up from 8.3% in February to 19.2% in June. Disposable income has gone from 14.9% in March to $16 trillion, or $49 trillion to $16 trillion in June. And worldwide, about 11% of credit card debt's been paid off, almost $100 billion. So those are the facts. Now, I realize people in Washington don't like numbers. They don't like facts. They prefer rhetoric, and they love to spend money. But we don't have an unlimited checking account. We're $26.5 trillion in debt, on our way to 27 to 28. And so I'm just laying out the facts. I am happy to take and redirect and repurpose the $1.2 trillion that hasn't been spent or even obligated and focus that on the individuals and the businesses that truly need the help. Now, listen, when we passed all this financial support back in April, we had to act fast. We wanted to do something massively. We knew it was going to be far from perfect. And I'm not criticizing anybody. It was far from perfect. Now's the time. We're past the worst part of this. Now we're looking at coming out of a very severe recession, but it's going to be a kind of a normal type of recovery. And the tools that we need to use really need to be focused on what we can do to grow our economy, how we can get people off the sidelines. Right now, one of the mistakes we made was the $600 flat fee that incentivized people to stay on the sidelines. I think the University of Chicago said 68% of people on unemployment made more on unemployment than working CBO. Estimated is about 5 out of 6 people. We have to end that very perverse incentive. We have to encourage people to get back into the work while still providing financial support to those people that really need it.
That University of Chicago study that you just cited, the very same author of that study has put out a new research piece that says if the $600 in unemployment extended benefits is cut at this point, and without a deal, that is the fact, it's gone to zero. He said if that goes to zero, then you will be looking at a drop of 4.3% in the economy. And that is bigger than the entire drop that we saw from 2007 to 2009 combined. Are you prepared for that?
Well, I'd want to really take a look at that study. But again, we've already provided 13.5 to 17% of our GDP in financial relief, haven't spent $1.2 trillion. One of the problems, I think, in negotiation is within less than a month, the ink wasn't even dry on the fourth financial package. Nancy Pelosi passed another $3 to $3.4 trillion, basically doubling that amount. And again, put aside the study that I haven't looked at. Other economic forecasters are saying somewhere between 4.6 and 7% GDP decline for the entire year. We have, I think, authorized more than enough money. We need to take a look at have we directed it properly.
Hey, Senator, question about the liability protection issue, which is also still seems to be, to some degree, a sticking point in all of this. Got an email literally as we were on the air, this from a viewer who writes, as a parent of a college student that's reopening campus solely for financial reasons, that's what this viewer's opinion is, why shouldn't I be able to sue the school if they don't take adequate protections? This could be applied, of course, to businesses of all stripes.
Well, first of all, I believe unless China cooked this up in the lab, I think COVID's an act of God. I don't think, quite honestly, anybody should be allowed to sue somebody else because you get infected. What is adequate protection? I'm highly concerned about some kind of preemptive liability protection bill we passed out of Washington, D.C. that puts on an affirmative duty for businesses and organizations and universities to do A, B, C, D, all the way to X, and they better do it perfectly, or now we're basically sanctioning lawsuits when somebody else gets infected. That those affirmative duties will remain forever. The liability protection, for example, of COVID will eventually fade away. So, by and large, lawsuits, liability, tort law is primarily governed by state law, and I think that's a better place to do it. I'm highly concerned about something the federal government passes that is worse than doing nothing at all.
Senator, are you for or against more money to bail out the airlines?
Well, I don't want to authorize a penny more until we repurpose, redirect the $1.2 trillion. But I certainly understand that the airline industry is a unique industry. It's vital for a functioning economy. It's going to have a tough time recovering from the COVID recession until people are comfortable flying, until we have effective therapeutics, until we potentially have a vaccine where their fear level, and by the way, it's a legitimate fear level. I don't want to get COVID-19, but we are succeeding on therapeutics. We're making a great deal of progress in terms of anti-inflammatory and anticoagulants. Convalescent plasma is very promising. I'm certainly an early advocate of hydroxychloroquine with zinc. I know how that's been politicized. All I can say is in early symptoms, if I start coughing and getting a sore throat, I'm going to take hydroxychloroquine and zinc. We ought
it hasn't
to
been politicized.
We should let doctors be doctors and practice medicine and supportive therapy.
The FDA,
and that's the best thing we do for the airlines.
The FDA, now we're going to get off on a tangent on this, but it's the FDA. It's the administration's own FDA that has said that hydroxychloroquine is not safe.
Well, no, they've said it's safe since 1955. It may have a problem very late stage when the coronavirus might have already affected heart tissue in terms of heart rhythm, but early in treatment, it's as safe as it's always been since 1955. But that is a tangent.
I want to get back to the.
I was trying to make the point that the best thing we can do for the airlines is develop those effective therapies, have a vaccine, and that's the only way you're really going to get the airlines to start filling up their planes so they can become financially viable. In the meantime, we do need to try and do something to keep those airline companies viable so they can reopen and start powering our economy once again.
Right, but the whole point is that people listen to this conversation and they say, senators are more than willing to give more money to the airlines, but when it comes to the restaurateur who's struggling and who got 10% of the PPP money as an industry, there's not as much attention paid to the small business owner who's basically left his businesses left for dead in the face of this ongoing pandemic.
That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying we should repurpose that and direct it. I mean, part of the problem with PPP is it was a shotgun approach. And so nobody knows because we haven't disclosed, all the people that got PPP loans. But I'm personally highly suspicious from an anecdotal level that probably tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars of PPP loans went to businesses that truly didn't need it. Now, I'm not criticizing them because the certification standard was so low. If because of economic uncertainty, they thought they needed a loan, they got one. What we should be doing is we should put some kind of backside control on that. And what I've suggested is, we should limit forgiveness based on the ability to pay. For a taxable organization, that ability to pay would be calculated based on after-tax income. for tax exempt would be based on the increase in net assets. A very simple test. Moving forward for second loans, I wouldn't put a revenue decline requirement on there. I would just tell people, we'll give you a loan, but if you have after-tax income or your net assets increase as a tax exempt, you're going to have to pay your PPP loan back to the extent that you have that wherewithal and ability to pay. I mean, to me, I think that's a common sense approach. I've been trying to talk to the authors of the bill. So far, they haven't adopted that. The other thing we do need to disclose every recipient of PPP loans. When they sign that loan, they signed the agreement that is going to be disclosed based on SBA current procedures and policies. So I think the American people have a right to know. I'm all for transparency and disclosure.
Yeah, transparency would be good. Senator Johnson, thank you for your time. It's good to see you.
Have a great day. Stay healthy.